Hello everyone. Continuing the series of cardiovascular diseases, today we are going to start up with VHD, that is valvular heart disease. There are four valves which are present in human heart, and the diseases which are affecting valves and their functioning are said to be the valvular diseases. Usually, it's the dysfunction or the improper function of valve that leads into disease and their complications. So, what exactly is the work of valve? Usually, valve are present in heart to maintain one-way blood flow to the heart. It is in a certain direction. They will always move in one particular direction. That is either from atria to the ventricles or from the ventricles to the concerned vessel, and they do not allow any backward flow or leakage into the chamber from where they are opening. So, as you can see, you can visualize there are four valves named as the tricuspid valve, mitral valve, also known as the bicuspid valve, aortic valve, and the pulmonary valve. So this is how uh, these four valves are. In any disease related concerning these valves or the functioning of these valves would be coined as valvular heart disease. So a little bit of information about the valves that already we have studied in your previous junior classes in physiology, the structure of these valve. The tricuspid valve to have three cusps, and it opens between the right atrium and the right ventricle. There is the mitral valve, is a bicuspid valve, is present between the left atrium and the left ventricle. Pulmonary valve is a semilunar valve, which is present between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. Also, aortic valve, which opens between the left ventricle and the aorta. Now, to categorize the type of disease present in the valve, we have two terms, that is stenosis and regurgitation. First of all, let us discuss about the stenosis. Stenosis is stiffening of the cusp or valvular structure. The stiffening is such that the valve does not open completely the way it should open, or the amount to which or the extent to which the valve should open. It's not complete, and the blood will not be passing through it completely. It is the chamber just above the valve won't empty itself completely. Whereas in regurgitation, there is a defect in the closing of the valve. That is, as the valve, we have discussed that valve do maintain unidirectional flow of blood. That is, they don't allow the blood to go back into the chamber from which it has arrived. For that, it needs to get closed completely. But in case of regurgitation, they don't close immediately, and a part of it leaks into the other chamber. So let us see into the valvular opening narrowing, that is stenosis. The valve leaflet may become fused or thickened, that the valve cannot open freely. That leads into obstruction of normal flow of blood. What is the effect? The chamber behind the stenotic valve is subject to greater stress. It is the effect. The chamber behind the stenotic valve is subject to greater stress, which creates more pressure. That is, it has to work harder to force blood through the narrowing narrowed opening. This turns out to be quite clear that as the valve is not opening completely, so you have to push more pressure to in order to push that amount of blood to the next chamber. Initially, the heart compensates for the additional workload by gradual hypertrophy and dilatation of myocardium, which in turn, in future, will lead into heart failure. So, the ultimate result of valvular stenosis is heart failure. That is, the heart will stop functioning or stop beating because of the overload and hypertrophy and dilatation of heart muscles. Whereas valvular regurgitation, as we have discussed, there is a leakage back into the previous chamber from where the blood was coming due to incomplete closure of the valve. This usually happens due to scarring and retraction of valve leaflet or weakening of supporting structures, which usually help the valve to close efficiently. What is the effect of it? It causes the heart to pump the same blood twice. That is, the blood which was supposed to be pumped from the ventricles to the other part of the body or from the atria to the ventricle, that moves back into the previous chamber or due to the leakage, and the heart has a need to again pump it to the next chamber. That causes the heart to pump the same blood twice. It also dilates, the heart also dilates to accumulate more blood, and this ventricular dilatation and hypertrophy. Why hypertrophy? Because it has to work hard to again pump the same amount of blood, which eventually will lead into heart failure. So both of these problems, that is stenosis and regurgitation, are actually leading into heart failure. Now, the about the etiology of why does this happens or what is the basic cause behind it. So, valve stenosis is usually caused due to congenital causes, rheumatic carditis, and senile degeneration. Senile degeneration is due to the aging effect as the person will grow old. Then valve regurgitation, that is congenital. It can be rheumatic carditis, infective endocarditis, valve ring dilatation, syphilitic aortitis, traumatic valve rupture, damage to chordae and papillary muscle, and senile degeneration. These are the causes. So the senile degeneration is due to the age, whereas damage to chordae due to MI, that is myocardial infarction, might cause some damage to the supporting structures of the valve. Traumatic valve rupture in cases of hypertrophy or overload of the heart chambers, that can lead into traumatic valve rupture. That is, the valve was not efficient enough to bear the shear pressure being laid due to the flowing blood. Syphilis, the tertiary manifestation of syphilis, might also cause valvular regurgitation, and infective endocarditis is also one of the causes. Now, the heart valvular diseases can be classified in 8 types. So, as there are four valves, mitral, tricuspid, aortic, and pulmonary. So, each valve can have two variations, that is stenosis and regurgitation. So, 4 multiplied by 2, that is 8. You have 8 disease: mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation; aortic stenosis, aortic regurgitation; tricuspid stenosis, tricuspid regurgitation; pulmonary stenosis, pulmonary regurgitation. So we'll look into one by one. Let us first start with mitral stenosis. So the etiology of mitral stenosis is almost always rheumatic in origin. That is, one of the complications of rheumatic fever is rheumatic heart, and due to the rheumatic origin, there is a sort of valvular defect developed. That is, one of them is mitral stenosis. Second is older people. It can happen in this as a senile cause due to calcification of mitral valve, and sometimes it is congenital in origin. That is due to since birth. So here it's a pictorial diagram what mitral stenosis causes. It is what will be the manifestation. It is usually rheumatic in origin. First of all, it can be congenital. It needs replacement through a prostatic valve. Usually they don't recover, and this is one of the most important valve of heart because it bears a maximum pressure of the blood. Because left side of the heart it do have more pressure of blood as compared to right, and it can also lead into some fibroelastosis. So fibroelastosis is also present, and malignant conditions can also be seen. Now, about the pathophysiology, or to understand how exactly this happens. So we have a pictorial diagram to show it. How exactly is this developing? So as you can see, the normal mitral valve opening is somewhere around 5 centimeters square in diastole, and when it reduces to 1 centimeter square, or in severe cases of mitral stenosis, the size or the opening usually reduces to 1 centimeter square. So you can imagine, as you can see here, if you can visualize the left side of the heart, the blood entering from the atria to the ventricle is passing through a very narrow gap. As compared to that on the right side, you can see the arrow size is quite thicker. Whereas here the arrow size is quite thinner. So what happens is, due to narrowing of that opening, there is a reduced flow of blood to the ventricles. Second, as more amount of blood is left in the left atrium. So that left atrium needs to exert more pressure in order to release that blood, or get that blood moved into the left ventricle. Now, this is the afterload. If you remember, we have discussed about preload and afterload. So this was the afterload, as there is more resistance to the flow of blood. As the afterload will increase, this after the increased afterload will lead into atrial hypertrophy. This atrial hypertrophy associated with back pressure of the blood would lead into that back pressure of the blood would lead into pulmonary hypertension, that is increased blood pressure in the vessels of the lung, because left atrium is directly connected to the vessels coming from the lungs, and that causes atrial fibrillation due to progressive dilatation of left atrium. It usually precipitates a pulmonary edema. So what happens here is, as the valve of the left side was affected, but usually what it will cause is, that is failure or right ventricular hypertrophy. It will cause the right side of the heart to fail, because the right side of the heart won't be able to pump the blood to the lungs due to the pulmonary hypertension present. Now you can see this flow chart where we'll follow this flow chart. See what narrowing of mitral valve has what it has done. It has increased left atrial pressure, due to which there is an increased pulmonary pressure, which has caused pulmonary congestion, and due to which there is right-sided heart failure. Also, there is oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange will get reduced. So it will cause fatigue, dyspnea, and orthopnea. That is, change in the position will cause difficulty Whereas increased left atrial pressure will lead into hypertrophy of left atrium. Also, the blood flow to the left ventricle usually it's less because not all the blood from the left atrium is coming to the left ventricle, which will cause increased cardiac output. Now, this increased cardiac output will lead into left ventricle hypertrophy and also fatigue as the body is not receiving the sufficient amount of blood it's supposed to get. Now, about the clinical features of mitral valve stenosis, breathlessness, cough, this is due to the pulmonary congestion, chest pain due to pulmonary hypertension, hemoptysis, again due to both hypertension and congestion, fatigue, low cardiac output, edema and ascites, right heart failure, palpitation is atrial fibrillation, and thromboembolic complications may also be seen. Now the signs can be seen for the atrial fibrillation. Mitral faces abnormal flushing of cheeks that occur from cutaneous vasodilation in the setting of severe mitral valve stenosis. On auscultation, loud first heart sound is heard, that is opening snap. This loud first heart sound is created by forceful opening of mitral valve. Mid diastolic murmur, that is at the apex beat, we can listen to the mid diastolic murmur. We can also listen to some crepitation, pulmonary edema, effusion, right ventricular heave, and loud P2, that is sound that is due to the pulmonary hypertension can be heard. So we can see a lot of different sounds coming from the heart, which is related to abnormal functioning of valve. We know the heart sounds are usually produced by the opening and closing of valves. Investigations usually ECG, X-ray, echo, Doppler, and cardiac catheterization is usually done. ECG, if, from ECG, if we get the tall R wave, which is indicative of right ventricular hypertrophy, chest X-ray might show large left atrium appendages, sign of pulmonary venous congestion can be seen. Echo will give you thickened immobile cusp, reduced valve area, enlarged left atrium, reduced rate of diastolic filling of left ventricle can be seen. Color Doppler would give you a patient pressure gradient against the mitral valve. Cardiac catheterization will give you idea about coronary artery disease and the pressure difference between pulmonary artery and the ventricle. Now, about the management, usually anticoagulants are given, some beta blockers and digitoxins, diuretics are usually given. Surgical interventions will have balloon valvulopathy as it's not opening, so you mechanically open it and fix it with structures which will help it to open normally. Valve replacement also done. So that was all about mitral stenosis. Next, we'll start with mitral regurgitation.